Could be.
Is that what we're headed for?
Works for me.
Okay, good.
Wouldn't be the first time. I shouldn't say that. Sorry. I gotta get my notes here. Okay, so just
Thank you all for staying.
yes, thank you all. Thank you all for staying. As if you had a choice. We're
We're going to pontificate for about an hour. Just don't worry about us. Good.
Let's talk amongst yourselves. Since this film came out, so it's been 11 years, you've co-directed 5 features, directed a TV series, co-written and co-directed all 16 episodes, produced or executive produced 23 films and 3 television series, written or co-written 8 features, acted in 6 television series and 18 features. You're married to an incredibly talented woman and have 2 children. And I was going to say, is at 39, does it bother you that you haven't done much more with your life?
Yes, I feel terrible. I've wasted my life. It's all terrible. I don't know. I don't think about it that way. You did a really good job on IMDb, by the way. That's some serious research you did there. It didn't feel like that to me. Strangely, I look at this movie. I haven't watched this movie in probably 7 or 8 years. I'm still sick of it, by the way. You never get tired of watching movies. And it feels, it feels like I haven't done that much since then. It feels like I haven't changed that much. It's odd, I mean, the funny thing is when you list all those things that I've done, it's not a lot has really changed in the way that we sort of go about our careers and the way that we sort of make our stuff. It's even if we're doing something with HBO with a lot of money, it still feels like me and my brother and my wife run around like idiots with a video camera. So.
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, it's not like you've gone from...
Yeah, we are idiots. I'm going to move this over here so I can...
No, but I mean, it's not like you've gone from this to, Independence Day 4 and all these action movies. Your movies are, more or less, with more budget, less budget, whatever. They're not that radically different in terms of they're about you, or they feel like they have you in them. And the way I sort of thought about it to myself was I was watching a bunch of these for this. There's an awful lot of aw in them. And you were saying that, and you say that in interviews, and you said that earlier outside, that you have this sort of sensitive, you want to write about, or you do write about and act and create these films that sort of explore that sensitive side in human beings.
It is what I'm interested in, for better or for worse. I mean, I remember when Jay and I were little. My brother's 3.5 years older than me, and when all of our friends were like, get in the van, we're all going to see Star Wars. We were like, we're watching Kramer versus Kramer. We can't make it. Or we were just inherently just obsessed with ennui and emotions, and I don't know what that is or what brings me to it. But it's an interesting thing because it's not easy to make a career out of that stuff necessarily. It's not necessarily the most commercial stuff. So you kind of got to get a little savvy about it. And I didn't realize what I was doing when I made the Puffy Chair. I mean, we made this movie with a $10,000 loan from our parents, who not only gave us the $10,000 to make this, but also we made them fly themselves out there to act in the film for the final scene. Those are our parents in the movie. And it just seemed like I can't wait to be done with this type of filmmaking where we're doing everything and there's no money, and it's, making our parents be in the movie. And I can't wait to just get to Hollywood where they'll pay me to make movies. And then as soon as I arrived, I was like, all I want to do is make movies like the way I made the Puffy Chair. And it's odd because you're just conditioned, and when you go to film school, whatever, to have this dream that you come from independent film, you do that once or twice, and then you transcend it and you move into the system. And I have, for whatever reason, learned that I am just better suited to be in this space. So, even today, where we can get a lot of money actually to make our movies, a lot of times what we do instead is I'll go be on a show like The League or something and make some money, and I'll take that money to go make our movies. And that's the way we made, like Safety Not Guaranteed, or The One I Love, or Your Sister's Sister. All these movies were literally self-funded right out of our pockets.
Didn't anybody tell you you're not supposed to do that?
Yes, everybody my agents tell me continually to this day, they're like, what are you doing? Why are you risking all this stuff? And all I can think is, A, I want to be in control of this project. I want to be able to do exactly what I want to do. And B, they're, as crazy as it sounds, it's hard to describe, but I don't know if you look at your favorite filmmakers or artists or novelists or something. It feels like they have somewhere between a 5 to 10 year run of greatness when you examine the people you really admire. And you say oh my God, the movies they made from 1972 to 1980 were just the best, or the paintings he made for these 5 years. And all of those, when I look at those, I feel like there's a moment where they transcend the process that they had, and they either enter a bigger system where they become a commodity, or where they realize that they have to keep making the same kinds of things to be successful, and they lose their zhuzh, and they just become bad parodies of themselves.
And the good ones can recover.
Sometimes
the really
they
great
do.
one, the
Sometimes
great
they
ones
do,
can
yes.
recover.
And I am terrified of that. And for me, the only way to continually stay vital is to be hanging lights, to be setting up Crafty, to be just keep doing that stuff the way I made it when I was a kid. It just, I don't know. I mean, we just, even last year, I made a movie with my best friend Patrick called Creep. That was this tiny little movie that we made for $500. Thank you. All 9 of you. I really appreciate you guys seeing that movie. You guys are great. But it's my agent is just what are you doing running around with your best friend who's not a successful filmmaker yet, and making movies up in a cabin in the woods with a handheld video camera? She's like, I can get you a job. I can go get you a real job that's
But
paid.
you're yeah, I'm working with my friend, and maybe he will become a successful
Yes.
filmmaker, and we can all make great movies together.
And the dirty truth of that, and I'll say this because I'm at a film festival, and you guys probably have some understanding of how the film industry works, it's a creative benefit. But on the other side of it, we made that thing for so cheap, we own the whole movie. For years and years to come, I'll be able to sell that movie every 10 years, resell it to Netflix, sell it to Hulu. And while we don't make a ton of money every time, over the course of time, hands down, I will make way more money on Creep, making it as a $500 movie on my own and selling it, than if I had made it as a $5 million movie with Lionsgate, who paid me $100,000 to do it, which is what they'll offer you. I'll make way more money if I'd owned it. So it's important, and I again, this is kind of dorky insider stuff, but I know there's a lot of filmmakers in the audience. Independent film is not just a means to get to Hollywood. It's not a stepping stone. It is an ecosystem in and of itself. And I have learned that in the long run, it's a long haul. You got to take some risks. If you bet on yourself and you own your stuff, you tend to do better.
Well, you said, in terms of working with, I don't want to step on your.
Yeah. Whenever I turn to my beer after I say something deep, you guys can applaud. That's what makes me feel really good.
You said we flew my parents out, and I want to just make movies with my friends. Well, that's actually what you do. I mean, you have this revolving door of friends and co-conspirators like Jen LaFleur and Josh Leonard and I have Lynn Shelton and Steve and so it seems like you're actually doing what everybody grows up and says, I'm going to make movies with my friends, and then they sort of drift off and do it, but you guys are actually doing.
There's a way to do it, and I said this a little bit before I got up here, and everybody has their own way. I try not to say that my way is the only way, but what I have discovered as I talk more and more about my career is that.
All right, this will be great. So yeah, what I've sort of discovered is that my way, for lack of a better word, is the way of not having any connections and not knowing how to do this in any way, shape, or form. So I just literally started making up ways to make movies. If you saw the production reports and the budget sheets for the Puffy Chair, it's laughable. It's like a kindergarten class. I ripped out a sheet of loose leaf from my notebook, and I was like, gas, $300. Hotels, $400. And we just started making it up.
So
and
were you your own line producer?
yeah, I was embarrassed about it because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I got to Hollywood, and everybody was like, how are you guys doing this? How are you making movies so cheaply? And they thought it was revolutionary, but I was like, I just thought I was a caveman who didn't know what he was doing, which is kind of true. But I guess to bring it back to what the core of it has been about for me is an essential belief at the core of my being that I cannot do this on my own. I do not know what's best for a movie. I cannot sit down and write a movie and say, this is the best script, and here are the best actors, and here's exactly the right shot choice, and here's how you edit it with that music, and here's how you distribute it. I don't know how to do that. There's a couple of people out there who know how to do it. But the only way I can do it is by banding up. And knowing that I have tons of gaps in what I know how to do, and if I have a strong group of 10 to 15 people around me, that they will be able to fill in all those gaps and help me out along the way. And that is a shape-shifting thing, just for case in point. My friend Mel Eslin, who runs my entire Netflix business, was a first assistant director on Your Sister's Sister, and then we brought her in to line produce Safety Not Guaranteed, and I was just like, this 26-year-old girl who used to be a tour manager for metal bands is brilliant, and I know she knows things that I don't know yet. And through the years, we have become close because she has an understanding of story that I'm never going to be able to understand. She has a way higher IQ than I have, and she has...
How are her SAT scores?
They're really good. They're really good. And every time we build a movie together, she catches 150 things that I'll never catch. Likewise, I like that I have some skill sets that I can offer people. I'm the guy that people bring in the script phase when they say, like, here's the first draft, what's missing? They bring me into the first cut, and like, what's going on here? Why can't I figure this out? And I love being in that community, because to me, that sort of means that, again, with that fear of like, am I going to become irrelevant in the next 5 years because I've just like made my best stuff, or maybe Hollywood's going to kick me out in a little bit. I'm going to have a tribe of people that's going to sort of lift each other up, and I just don't know how to do it any other way.
You've worked in sort of super low budget, medium budget. You've worked in the mini major world. As an actor, you've worked with studio stuff. There's got to be a massive difference in how they treat you as a creator, and sort of your latitude and what you're able to do. Specifically naming names. Just what's that like? How do you go back and forth, and are there parts about it that you really dig versus the other?
It is tricky. I will say this. I have been on independent film sets of movies that were made for $15,000 that felt more limiting than $5 million movies. It depends on the specific infrastructure of what you're involved in, and not to throw like tons of people under the bus, but like, let's throw some people under the bus, guys. Come on, let's get into it. So for instance, we're in this phase right now where like people talk about this in independent film. Distributors like Independent Film Channel and Magnolia, they've been around for years supporting independent films, and they're having kind of a hard time right now because Netflix and Amazon have shown up in the form of Starbucks right next to their little shop and have started paying huge money for movies. That's really fucking hard for those guys. And that's a bummer, And
now they're making them too.
Yeah, and they're making them too. And it's tricky, man. So like, what I can tell you is this, like, I can make a movie with Netflix for what I perceive is a ton of money. It's not a lot of money for them. It's kind of a fart for them because they're a huge conglomeration. But their fart is my windfall. And that's why Netflix and I are fantastic partners, because I know how to make a movie for a penny. They pay $1 for it. And they're used to paying $10 for it. So everybody wins. I have this huge profit built in. They're getting it for cheap. It's wonderful. So that's a scenario where a well-funded movie has full, complete creative control for me. Granted, that comes from me just having been in this industry for 11 years. There are other scenarios. For instance, Zero Dark 30. That was a piece of art through and through. There was never a studio note. It was all about exploring. It was all about finding what we could find in the moment. Half of the dialogue I did, on the day with James Gandolfini was improvised while we were trying to figure out stuff, and it gave it this loose vibe to it. And that was like a 3-camera approach. That felt like I was shooting the Puffy Chair again. So it is not clear and cut as to higher budget means less control, lower budget means more control. But in general, the more I move forward in this business, I'm starting to realize that the only way I can guarantee to make the things that I love and continue to make the things that I love the way I want to make them is to own them, and no matter how good any situation is, I mean, my brother and I just went through a little bit of a mini heartbreak when our series Togetherness just got canceled by HBO. I love HBO. I have a huge, you can boo, it's fine. I love HBO. I have a huge deal with them. We're making a ton of stuff together. But it's kind of an expensive show to make, relatively speaking. And that was my last piece of business that I have where someone else pays for it. And I learned something. Because I didn't pay for that show, I was allowed to have my heart broken. And that's what happened. And it just, as going forward, again, I'm going to be a little bit of a broken record tonight, but for the filmmakers in the audience, I keep wanting to hit this. We are conditioned to believe that, oh God, I got to make stuff on the weekends with my friends because nobody wants to pay for it, and I have to pay for it myself. I can't wait till I get out of that game just so Hollywood will start paying for my stuff. It's over. It's a myth. Forget about all that stuff. Continue to make your stuff on your own. Continue to own your stuff. You'll live a lot longer.
I mean, it's not.
Wait, let me drink my beer while you do it.
I mean, not everybody's. This isn't going to happen to everybody, but that is what George Lucas did. I mean, he made Star Wars, and he's like, all right, I'm going to control the merchandising rights, and the studio went, merchandise, yeah, sure, whatever. And then with that, he was then able to go and do everything else he wanted, for good or bad, on his own. So, and I think people learned from that.
It's a cool thing, it's risky. You got to bet on yourself. We have a new show called Animals that airs on HBO. It's a fun animated show. Thank you, guys. I'm just going to keep saying my names of shows so you just keep clapping. I have these new shoes. Yes. We have this new show on Animals on HBO called Animals. You should see it from a modeling perspective. It's really interesting because it was the first time that a piece of television was made completely independently and then sold to a network. I used the independent film model where we make an indie film, like the Puffy Chair, take it to Sundance and sell it. And I was thinking, well, look, all the filmmakers are moving to TV. I'm going to make a series of television with these two young animators who are brilliant. It was their show idea. I helped them craft it. And I set them up an apartment, and I set them up with all the money they needed to make a series of TV. And we took it out, and we sold it to HBO, and they bought 2 seasons of it. And what's so great about that now is that I didn't even think about it this way, but like we became the studio. Like we own that show, and then as long as HBO wants to make it, they can have it. But if they want to come to me like they did in Togetherness and say, we don't want to make this anymore, I get to just say, okay, well, I own it. I'll just go take it somewhere else. And that it's very important, I think, for young filmmakers to understand that, like, sometimes we look at the business-brained people in our industry and think, I don't want to think about business. I just want to be an artist. We're in a time where understanding the business is really, really helpful. And, that autonomy that comes from the independent sphere is really important now.
You talked a little bit about improvising and on the set with James Gandolfini, and that comes up often in your work. Is that just something that? Do you have a background in improv, or how does that come about in what you're doing?
Yeah, improvisation started, all false modesty aside, when Jay and I were not totally confident as screenwriters, and we felt stronger about our ability to get a scene right, nuancing it in the moment, than to get it right on paper. And for any of you out there who have written, I think you can identify with that feeling of working really hard, writing something on the paper, and just feeling like, this feels not as good, not as smart, not as heartfelt as I wanted it to be, and not as representative of who I am. And that is so common for screenwriters, for young screenwriters. It's common for very experienced screenwriters. It's very hard to exact your vision on that page. So we started improvising, saying, we'll get the script 80% there, that's all we're skilled at doing, and then in the moment, our instincts will hopefully take us the rest of the way and get to something truthful. So it was less about improvising as we understand it from improv comedy classes where you go on a joke run, but more about literally re-saying all the words in the script so that they felt more organic and felt more truthful. The Puffy Chair is full of all that. All of my favorite tiny little moments in the Puffy Chair come from the confusion of the three of us in the scenes not knowing what's coming next, the awkward silences because we couldn't expect it, things like Rhett saying like, you know, yeah, but we exchanged email addresses, so it's all good. Like, that's all improvisation. In that same scene, you know, it struck me like how Jay and I were not really good at writing for women yet in this movie. Like, I look at this and I'm like, oh, that movie's a little sexist. Okay, it's good to know. There's like the female character's not as good as it could have been, and like we've come a long way to togetherness and being able to write for
and
girls.
Still, she married you.
Yeah, she married me still, which was great. But there was a moment in the cafe where we were doing that scene, and Katie was like, kind of like, just tenacious about it. And we were like, what's going on? You know, I feel like you have something else to say. And she's like, I don't know how to say it to you in between scenes, but can you just let me loose? And we're like, yes, please, just go loose. Come right off the script. And that's when all that stuff started pouring out of her about being extremely upset about the way Rhett was treating marriage, and she just blurted out that wonderful thing, which I thought was great, which was because marriage is special and you didn't treat it that way. And you really start to understand her in that moment. So I believe personally, even the greatest screenwriter in the world could probably benefit from allowing their actors who've been studying this role for so long, who've been inhabiting it, to re-say some of those things the way they felt they could be said. It occasionally brings you something really organic.
That's interesting because you're approaching improv from a writer's point of view rather than from an actor's point of view.
100%.
And most people you hear about that, it's like, you know, actors saying, well, you know, this is my craft, I improv, and you actually came to it first thinking about it as a writer.
I needed it as a writer. I continue to need it as a writer. I just truly believe that, you know, again, there are probably some writers out there who voice things so well, who can pour over it and see it so well, that script is God and they should leave it and not improvise. I'm just not that person. I need my collaboration to get it better.
How did you come to acting? I mean, did you, you know, I have this theory that I just invented a day ago, and it's probably terribly wrong, that there's three kinds of actors. I'm sure there's 30. Extroverts, introverts who want to get over their introvertness, and those that can't afford to hire actors.
Right. Well, I think that those are true. I agree with those. For me, the way it started was literally when I was 6 years old and Jay was 10, and he was old enough to operate the video camera, and I was just young and stupid, so he would just put me in front of the camera. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just do this. And then when we made our first short that went to Sundance, it was a short called This Is John. It was like that $3 short film I was talking about earlier. What it was Jay filming me improvising the story of a man who is trying to perfect the personal greeting of his answering machine and failing over and over again. And so what we realized in that moment was that while I wasn't like a professional actor who was really that great, I could make up for it because I was the writer, the producer, and the co-director of the movie, and I knew what to do and how to maneuver in the scene because of that. So my value as an actor started early on in that I was a co-filmmaker who could move the scenes around from the inside, and that made it really worthwhile. I really believe in this to this day. When you're making movies with your friends, think less about auditioning people from the local theater group who may or may not fit your role that you're writing, and think more about like, John is so charismatic and interesting when he's like this. I'm going to write a short film for him to do this. Even though John's not a pro, he's my bud, and he'll be with me and able to maneuver that thing around. I really believe in that thing. Of course, as you graduate, you can then hire professionals and it can work out. I personally just have an enormous ego and continue to like doing it. So,
Well, and I kind of get the feeling that it probably gives you a break. I mean, you must have a rhythm or something where you say, look, for 2 years I've been writing, directing, acting, producing. I just need a project where I can just go act. and then at the end of the day, I can just go home, be with my kids and my wife, and I don't have to worry about anything else about this project but showing up and acting.
There is definitely a certain part of that, and usually it's less about like, oh, I've been on a 2-year run, so I want to do this now. I mean, I was on the league for 7 years. That always provided a nice, like, I call it drunkle time, which is basically me being the drunk uncle who shows up, plays with the kids, and then goes home and doesn't have to deal with anything. That is really the essence of acting, is that when you are a director, you are a parent. There's nothing more rewarding than having your children and being with them, but it's exhausting and it almost kills you. And when you're an actor, you are the drunk uncle who shows up with Oreos, plays with the kids, and then goes home and lets everybody else deal with the responsibility. And there will be a lot of actors who will get up here and talk about the seriousness of their craft, and I do not want to take that away from them. But it's definitely, on a whole, a lot less pressure and a lot less taxing on you. So there's definitely a break for me when I'm doing that.
Now, you and Jay are, it's, Jay and Mark Duplass and the Duplass brothers. And I noticed, for the first few years when you guys were on talk shows, it was always you guys. Now, every once in a while, Jay gets on, James Corden, and you go do your own thing. You're still obviously very much involved in doing your own things, but have you consciously tried to work in this time where you can sort of each explore your own time?
Yeah, I mean, there's Jay and I are actually in the middle of writing a book right now about the wonderful and terrible nature of our long-term collaboration and what it's like to be married to your brother and also have him be your best friend and all those things. And I think you're right about the fact that you'll see more of me and Jay individually in the world now than you used to. There used to be just like the two of us always together. And usually that separation comes in the form of the separate acting projects that we pursue. We didn't consciously sit down and say we should become actors and have separate things. What organically happened is that because I was in movies, I started to act in other people's things, like Hump Day, and through that I discovered it was a very, very healthy thing for me to be having what Jay and I referred to as my affairs on our marriage, which was like me being able to go out and do something else. And I don't know how many of you are extremely close with one of either your spouse or your sibling in particular or your best friend. This thing starts to happen where, like, let's say you show up at a party and you realize you both have the same sense of humor, you both have the same party stories, and if one of you is feeling a little more outgoing or forward, the other one just tends to recede in the background, and they're like, well, they're doing all the stuff that I normally do, so I'm just going to sit over here and just eat some chips. and it gets a little weird sometimes, and we've talked a lot about that. And while the core belief we have is that, like, look, we would rather stay together and we would rather be it's a terrible metaphor I'm about to make, but we'd rather be the Indigo Girls rather than one Indigo Girl and one Indigo Girl overall. We like being together with our acoustic guitars. But
you're just saying you'd rather be closer to Fine.
I'd rather be closer to Fine. Yes, overall. But that, serendipitously, it's been really healthy for us to be able to walk in a room and just like be whatever we want to be and be a little different. When you're next to someone who knows you so well, if you want to step out a little bit, you kind of almost feel like you're being not totally true to yourself to a certain degree.
But you're getting a little strange.
Yeah, you get a little strange. Yeah. So we talk about that stuff a lot. It's a good thing for us to do. At the end of the day, like, the art that I make is less good when I make it without my brother, when it comes to writing, directing, and producing, and I'd just rather be with him. It's worth it.
All right, I just have a couple of sort of random questions, and I want to throw it out to the audience. We're just to get ready. There's going to be a microphone. There's a microphone on either side. There's one there, and I assume there's one right over there. So if you guys have questions, you can line up at either one, rather than have someone run around and hand microphones. So get ready. That's what I'm saying.
You can just yell shit too. That's
yeah,
fine.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's not the biggest room in the world. We might be able to hear you. I'm old and getting a little deaf, so maybe not. Can you tell us a little bit about Balls Equality?
Balls of quality, guys. All right, we're getting there. We're going there. Balls of quality is something I made up, and I probably shouldn't have, but it's chasing me everywhere I go. It is something I do believe in. It just has a terrible name. So when we were making Togetherness for HBO, one of the first conversations that comes up is not who's going to get naked. It's really when and how are you going to get naked on the show, because that's what happens when you do an HBO show. So we couldn't help thinking about what part will nudity play on our show. We're trying to show a candid, in-depth study of relationships. That's part of it. We don't want to have to cut away in the bedroom just because it feels untruthful. So what we decided very early on is that we would have balls of quality on our show. And that is that anytime a boob or a set of boobs or a vagina was revealed on the show, there must be a set of testicles or a penis to go along with it, so that we are 50-50 in our representation. So, like it or not, Steve and I are available for your viewing pleasure on Togetherness.
Now, I recently rewatched Jeff Lives at Home. In my head, please.
Thank you.
In my head, I had, for some reason, retitled it as Jeff Who Still Lives at Home, which is a much different and much more inferential title. And when I watched it, I realized it's not that. And I mean, Jeff Who Still Lives at Home is much more of a loser than Jeff Who Lives at Home.
Agreed.
And this was sort of when I, sort of started putting the really sweetheart core of all your movies, and this really. Tell me if I'm imagining something, but when Susan Sarandon starts getting the instant messages, there's a music cue. This is way inside baseball, but it reminded me of The Player.
I stole the music cue from. No, it's actually not. It's not. I don't know. I
There's
love that you inferred this.
When he gets the postcards, and it was. I was just like, oh my God.
And it felt similar.
Yeah.
Here's what I will admit to. There's a very good chance that subconsciously I steered my music composer towards that because I love that movie. I have this horrible habit. I should not be saying this up here, but I've seen so many movies so many times that when I'm improvising, occasionally my subconscious brings up a line from like a movie that I've seen a million times, but I don't know that I'm stealing it, and it will go into a movie. You usually can't track it because they're usually mismatched. But I was watching Safety Not Guaranteed the other day, and I saw the part where she's being sarcastic to me, and my character, who's slightly as he is, I improvised this line of like, "Why does your voice sound funny?" Because I was like, "Oh, that'll be interesting," because he doesn't understand what sarcasm is. And I thought it was brilliant, and I thought I came up with it. And then I realized that I had directly stolen that from the scene while they're ice skating in Splash. Well, when Tom Hanks uses sarcasm on Daryl Hannah, and she says, "Why does your voice sound funny?" And I was like, "Oh shit! I just ripped that off, and I didn't even know it." So it's possible I ripped off The Player.
But it also can happen organically. Have you seen American Movie?
About 150 times. It is my favorite movie of all time.
Okay.
100%.
Do you remember the scene when they're at the junkyard and Mike Shank is beating the shit out of that car, and they get down and he says, "Well, dude, was that like a catharsis for you?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Do you even know what catharsis means?" And he says, "No. That organically was ripped off from Three Amigos."
Of course it was. Do you know what a plethora is?
Yes.
Yes.
But they swear that they'd never seen Three Amigos.
They've seen Three Amigos. They're just not willing to admit it.
All right, my last random question here is, you and I both have a love for weepy movies, for movies that just make you bawl your eyes out. And I'm on record many, many times. I've seen Your Sister 5 or 6 times, and I blame Lynn every time for ruining tissues and crying or whatever. Do you have any that are sort of like less obvious sort of ones that really sort of hit you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a whole theory about weepy movies, and I don't know if it's correct or not, but it is for me, which is that we walk through this world sometimes with more confidence than others, right? Sometimes you wake up and you're just like, I'm on top of things. I want to go to a museum and watch some cool high art and I want to see a foreign film that makes me think and you feel good. There are other mornings you wake up where you have the flu, 102 degrees fever, you're feeling terrible about yourself, and those are the days where you want to go to the weepy movies. In fact, I will profile certain films where I remember seeing the trailer for The Blind Side, and I was like, on my confident day, I will go into this theater and I will judge it, and I will be cynical, and I won't like everything that this incredibly emotional sports movie can give me. If I wait until I am vulnerable and have fever, I'm going to love it and I'm going to cry my eyes out in this thing. So I literally save them depending on the day. So I have some standards there. Somewhere in Time is huge for me, but you need like 103 degrees fever to go for that one. Half of Bridges of Madison County, the modern half, they're terrible in it, but the Clint Eastwood, Meryl Streep stuff, the whole this type of certainty comes along once in a lifetime. He's holding on to the handle. Is she gonna get out? And that shit rips me open. But again, I need to be sick for that. Hoosiers, it's an obvious play. That's a big one. But yeah, then I have these like weird subtle ones. There's an independent film from 2004 called Old Joy that Kelly Reichardt made. It is the most subtle movie in the world. It's about old friends who don't know how to talk to each other anymore and are confused by it. And the climax of the movie is one of them giving the other one a massage and kind of letting him know that it's okay to be sad sometimes. And the movie's this big, and it just kills me.
I have that way about Jesus' Son.
That movie's incredible.
I saw it at
short
the Hamptons
story's great,
Film Festival.
yeah.
Yeah, the story's great. And I got up when I was done and walked out, and I said, "Yeah, I'm done for the day. I'm just going home.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna think about that one." Okay, so let's open it up. So
For
right
everyone
here,
else's weepy movies, before you ask
Yeah,
your question,
you have
I
to
want to
tell
hear a
us-
weepy movie. What do you have, a heart of stone? God damn it!
You've Got Mail?
There it is! By the way, brave of you to admit that in this room.
Okay, I have a question, but first I just wanted to say Shiva Kamini Soma Kandakram Shiva Kamini Shiva Kamakram.
You almost got it right. That was close.
I was practicing and I messed up. My question is, do you have any plans to go back to the league or do anything similar to it?
I could go back to the league. It's not there, so it would be weird. Yeah, I didn't create that show. I was just a performer in that show. We ran 7 seasons, which was kind of amazing, and I will be forever grateful to the league. It was, and I don't think it'll ever be this way again. It was all of our first big TV jobs, and we were nobodies when we got on that show. And for whatever reason, when you're doing a comedy improv show, they tend to be the most conflictive with personalities because everybody's competing for the joke. And there was not, and I'm not using hyperbole, never an ounce of conflict amongst the entire cast of that show. Just a loving, sweet group of people, and I will miss that forever. We'll never get that back again because it's kind of like that first love kind of thing. But as you all know, certain things run its course, and we all knew by the end of that show, we were like, this is toast. If we went back here, it would be really, really bad. It's over.
Thank you.
Yeah.
over here.
Hi. A weepy movie, right?
Yeah.
Goddamn right.
Well, I have two. The comfortable
You get one, and you'll
I get-
like it.
All right, thanks. Shame. That's
Yeah,
probably
shame. Great.
That's probably my weepy movie.
Because you saw his penis, and you're like, mine will never
yeah.
be that big.
It's,
And you just cried for
it's
a
a
long
fat
time.
bender, you know.
Wait, shame or Shane?
Shane. I thought, Shane.
Shame with an M, as in.
Oh,
With an
okay.
M. He's
yeah,
saying M.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't sure.
yeah.
You know.
I'll just
I was
walk
like,
away.
wait a
now.
minute.
It's cool.
Well, I mean, John Wayne he's not doing too bad
I
either. But
wasn't
anyway,
thinking of
continue.
The music selection, not only for this, but for most of your projects, is pretty incredible. It's always diverse, and it reaches a crowd that kind of likes music that doesn't necessarily play to pop culture. Do you play a heavy part in selecting music for the projects that you do, especially Togetherness? Because language bard. It's fucking incredible.
Thanks, bud.
But
So long and short answer is that, I come from a music background. I pretty much curated all the music for the Puffy Chair. These were bands that I used to go on tour with, and they were bands that were willing to give us their music for cheap. And as I get older, I get less and less connected to what is cool and interesting in the music industry. Go figure. My music supervisor, Maggie Phillips, also happens to be one of my best friends. We've known each other for 15 years. She rises in strength and power in our music relationship as the years go by. Not only does she know and understand me as a person so well about what I like, but she becomes more and more knowledgeable about the music industry as I spend more and more time playing with my kids and getting less cool. So Maggie Phillips is the answer to Togetherness. I'm the answer on this. And then in between, she kind of started taking over.
cool. Awesome. Thank you.
And to interject, I assume that HBO is the one that chooses the post-credit music, or is that Maggie also?
That's always Maggie.
Oh, awesome. Because it's a signature of their sort of stuff, but it's good that they let you guys do that. Right over there.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Jillian Quain. My weepy movie is Life is Beautiful.
Oh my God.
Majorly weepy.
Well, there you go.
Life is beautiful. 3 times
Yeah.
in the theater. Cried every time.
My question is kind of how are you weepy about Puffy Chair? It's hard for filmmakers to watch their own movie. I'm just curious, like watching this, do you critique it? Do you admire it? Does it inspire you?
Yeah.
Is it a time capsule because it's your family and your wife and everything? Like, how do you feel watching it 7 years later? Well, I mean 11, but you said.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. How do I feel watching this movie? A lot of subjective stuff and objective stuff involved. My objective analysis watching it is like, there's some really cool things I did by letting 3 shots play with subtle silences, weird pauses that I don't do as much anymore. I've gotten a little more exacting, and the pacing of my stuff moves a lot quicker and quote-unquote more professionally now, and I missed some of that stuff, but I also understand why I don't do it anymore. So that was a little conflictive but fun to watch. I just was struck by how much we used to shoot like documentaries. We really did just follow people around with no marks and out of focus and zooming cameras, and how fun that was. The subjective part of it for me, I just immediately started crying as soon as the door opened and I saw my parents be 11 years younger and like feel the mortality of that kind of thing, which is just like, oh my gosh, my dad looks more like me now than he looks like himself now, which was interesting. So that's always very emotional. And then I was really struck by how good Katie is in the movie. And I always was, for whatever reason, yeah, thank you guys. I mean, I knew she was really good in it, but it's like over the last 11 years, I've watched her like turn into this, amazing actress. And I guess I just kind of thought that, we were dumb kids in the Puffy Chair, and maybe we didn't know what we were doing. But while I was I think a good filmmaker back then who could pull off a performance, I watched her and I was like, oh, she was already a really fully formed actress. That was pretty cool to see. Thanks for the question. That's nice.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. What's your weeper?
Oh, wait, my name's Mark.
My name is Jackie, and my weeper would be the Joy Luck Club.
Yes. By the way, that's like a 6'2", 200-pound man who said that. That's my favorite part about that. Oh my God, me too. Yours is supposed to be Predator. I'm really glad it's Joy Luck Club. Congratulations. Anyhow, continue.
Well, I have a music industry background. I'm actually working as a music supervisor for the first time right now, and so the guy in front of me stole my question. So I thought of a different question. So tonight, when I get home, I'm really excited, but I'm also sad to watch the finale of Togetherness.
Yeah, it's tonight.
It's tonight, so mixed feelings about that, but I'm still excited to see the finale. But I wanted to ask you, so I'm also a fan of Looking, which is also on HBO and survived only 2 seasons. And they're giving Looking a film to finish out. Is that something that you would be interested in doing for Togetherness?
The truth is, no for Togetherness. We talked about it. I have a good relationship with those guys. And it's just serendipitous, to be honest with you. The way that season 2 ends, as crazy as it sounds, it actually is kind of a great series finale, and you will see. When we started thinking about season 3, it was going to be a big reboot of the story, because there's kind of a little bit, without saying too much, a little bit of a natural resolution that just happened in the first 2 season arc. If I had been canceled after, say, season 3, and it was all up in the air, and I needed a movie to close it, I would definitely go for it. If I did a movie now, it would actually be opening up more of a can of worms that I wouldn't have enough time to close within 2 hours. So it's weird. I mean, when you look at Togetherness now, I understand everybody's feelings are like, oh, bummed, it's getting cut short, it was canceled. There's a yes to that, but 5 years from now, I think we will look back and be like, whoa, this works really, really well as like an 8-hour miniseries in and of itself. And I personally am like not sure about my ability to stay creatively relevant over the course of 6 seasons with these characters, and not like kind of start to stink it up around season 5 and, you know, and get tired of the characters and all that stuff. So I kind of look at this as like, all right, maybe we'll just be the freaks and geeks that rode hard for 2 seasons and went out high.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just a quick interjection. Mark, we've got another beer coming for you, so don't worry.
Guys, you trying to get me drunk?
Just a little bit.
Okay. What's your weeper?
Where's my bourbon?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Come on up.
You're there, all right.
So my first weeper, I would say, was Bridges over Madison County.
It's almost as good as Bridges of Madison
Oh,
County.
that, yes.
Both of
that
them are
was
good,
a
though.
long time ago,
Yes.
so the first one. So at the end of the Puffy Chair and the end of every episode of Togetherness, I feel a pang and this awkwardness, and I was wondering what you're thinking of when you conceptualize your resolutions.
Well, that is like high praise for me, so thank you for saying that. That is everything I strive for, is that you might be left with something that makes you feel a little bit conflictive. You know, and I don't know what it is about what I like and what I feel, but when my brother and I are together, when I'm with my closest friends, when I'm with my wife, we tend to talk about things that feel really dramatic to us and a little bit sad, and we live in them, and then we start giggling. And that is the predominant feeling of my life, and that bittersweetness. And so that is what I'm trying to put across in my stuff, if there's anything consistent in the theme and the tone of it, is that like, this is a little bit of pain, this stuff makes me a little bit sad, I don't know how to feel about this, but when I look at it with people that I love and I can like band up a little bit, it's not so terrifying, and it kind of makes me laugh a little bit. You get me. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's awkward and it's bittersweet, and you know, you put your characters in awkward situations, but it's life. I mean, you know, life is awkward, and so, you know, there's a line in Togetherness from either last week or the week before where Tina says, the things that I thought were going to happen are just not going to happen, and that one really just sort of like, you know, it hit me, and I was like, well, shit, man, that really sucks.
I feel that way all the time, guys. Yep.
My honest weepy movie is Fox and the Hound. It's really
Oh,
depressing.
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have kids?
No, not yet.
Oh, wait till you have kids,
Oh.
dude. It gets twice as bad.
Oh no.
Because you'll be feeling it, and then you look over and you see that bottom lip start going, dude.
Oh.
And you're like, oh, I made you, and you're from my genes, and I made you cry at that. And it's a whole cyclical thing. You're dead.
I felt
You're
like
dead.
I was at a film festival and I should say something better than that. But no, that's if I have 103-degree fever.
I'm a hound dog. Yeah, I know that one.
There's no better. That's perfectly acceptable.
My question for you is, so Puffy Chair kind of spawned what we call mumblecore in the film world, with you and Jay and Lynn Sheldon, all these movies that you guys have created. One, how do you feel about having spawned a whole type of movie, an independent movie that's described in this sort of way? And then 2, on top of that, do you mind that people call it mumblecore, or is it a ScarJo thing where you don't like it?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, we're making little movies. Anytime anybody wants to write about them and bring attention to them, call it whatever you want. I don't give a shit. New York Times wants to write about me, great. More people are going to see the movies. That's awesome. That being said, I do think there's something slightly hyperbolic in the description of what mumblecore is. It tends to go a little too far, in my opinion, about us being the first kinds of people to like be progenitors of DIY filmmaking, which is so wrong. I mean, there's Cassavetes, there's the French New Wave, there's Spike Lee and Jim Jarmusch in the 80s, there's Soderbergh in the 90s. I mean, like, everybody was doing this before us. So,
Well, not to mention the people in the 1890s.
yes.
I mean,
So let's not pat ourselves on the back too much here. That being said, there is something good about it, even though the name sounds a little pejorative, maybe. There's something good about describing a movement that can be inspiring to people who feel that I'm nowhere, I have no connections. Here's a group of kind of dorky looking guys who actually don't even speak that intelligently, who became successes in the film industry. And I think we are inspiring to young filmmakers in that we're just normal people who, I know I keep saying this, but when I see Soderbergh and the Coen brothers on stage, they make me feel helpless because I'll never be that smart, eloquent, and good at that. But when I see my brother and myself on stage, I'm like, I could be like those guys. They're normal dudes. And so I think if mumblecore has any strength, it is saying like, yeah, with a couple $1,000s and like an average set of intelligence and a hard work ethic, you kind of make something. And I think that's a good thing.
Thank you.
over here.
My weepy movie is Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless
Oh
Mind.
God. Okay, so I have a story for you. Great, really great. When I was on tour, leaving Florida and that whole thing in 2004, we ended up in Austin, went to South by Southwest, played the festival there, and then Katie came down to visit, and we went to see Eternal Sunshine in the movie theater. And we walked out of there, and we called Jay immediately, and we're like, go see Eternal Sunshine. There's a movie here that feels, it's a sci-fi movie, but everything else feels just like us. It's funny, it's sweet, it's sad. It's not poking fun at these characters. He loves those characters, even though they're all fucked up. And I think we can make a movie like this if we like strip it down. We have to strip all the sci-fi shit out because we can't pay for that. But if like, and we were sitting in my van. I was like, if we wrote a movie that took place like in the van, that van was my musician touring van, like in the van and like in my apartment in New York, and we shot in Katie's hometown in Maine where people would be nice to us. I was like, I think we can do this. So that was a big model for us.
I just love how Michel Gondry did a lot of effects in camera.
Yeah.
Like he insisted on that too. But anyway, that's not my question. First, thanks for being here. I'm a local filmmaker, so it really means a lot. And I've been inspired by your short, This Is John, kind of played the festival circuit, and just you networked from there and built it onward and upward. So my question is, if you had to start all over now, you're starting clean slate right now, would you do anything differently?
Yeah, I mean, the hard part and the great part is that I was lucky to come out in 2004 because I was in a generation when the first camera came out, that Panasonic camera that shot 24 frame video that looked decent. And so I truly believe, all false modesty aside, that if the Puffy Chair comes out today, it does not make the splash it made in 2005, because there's just thousands more independent films that feel and look like that being made today.
iPhone. I mean, now you can shoot. I mean, Tangerine was shot on an iPhone.
Yeah.
So
So it's a little harder to make your way through the sea of tons of tiny independent films. So the only difference I would say between me now and me back then is, great, it's cheaper to make stuff now. You can shoot it on your iPhone and edit on iMovie, and it will look and sound a lot better than the Puffy Chair does. So the Puffy Chair can be made now for $500, and it'll look better. That's a big positive. The negative is that you're competing with 10,000 features to get into Sundance as opposed to 2,000 features. So you are faced with this conundrum of, do I need to be noisy and shticky to stand out? Or can I just be simple and honest and real? And I don't have the answer to that. I'm in the luxury now where like I actually don't have to scream to be noticed. If I put out a good piece of art, it will get noticed. If I was nowhere right now, I would be really tempted to be noisy. I don't want to say Tangerine is noisy for noisy's sake, but Tangerine is a noisy film, and that when I say noisy, it makes waves. It's something that the press can write about, because we had like the first like 2 transgendered actresses to get nominated. We had like a movie shot on iPhone. It had like all of this social stuff around it. So I don't have the answer for that. The only thing that I would say is that I would, if I came out now and I was nowhere, I would probably spend quite a bit of time underground on weekends making those like $5 short films until I found very uniquely and specifically what I think I'm good at before I kind of went out with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right over here.
How's it going?
Terrible, man. It's terrible up here.
My Weepy movie is incredibly loud and extremely close.
Yeah. Haven't seen it.
Oh?
Know the book. Haven't seen it.
It's pretty sad.
Should I read the book or should I watch the movie first? Read the book.
That's probably the.
She didn't like the movie, just so you know. She's judging you, but that's fine. We're all people. Okay, thank you. What was your question?
Now, everyone's got these really, important questions to ask you, and I was just curious, if you had the ability to time travel, where would you go?
Oh, yeah. If I had the ability to time travel, where would I go?
I'm not convinced, however, by the way, that you don't have the
kinda
ability
do,
to time travel,
guys.
considering your output.
All right. It's like 3 versions of that. One is like super superficial one where I would just like go back and get the lottery numbers so I could win all that money and just pay for everybody's independent film throughout time. Then there's the other one that's like, you know what? I spent a lot of time in my teens and my 20s unhappily suffering as an artist, just like thinking, terrified that I wasn't ever going to be able to eat, terrified that I wasn't going to have a life ahead of myself, and I could have had a lot more fun back then. So I would like to be able to go back to myself and be like, you're going to be fine. Take a moment. It's okay to take a walk in the park with your girlfriend for 5 minutes. You don't have to be working 24 hours a day. I kind of destroyed myself. Then I would say that the third part of it is connected to one of my weepy books, which is The Time Traveler's Wife. A lot of weepers in here, guys. A lot of weepers. Not the movie on that very specifically, but the book on that. For those of you who have kids, you will understand this, and those of you who don't, you will understand this when you have kids. I have 2 daughters. They're 8 and 4. They look exactly like my wife. And when I hang out with them, all I can think of is like, I'm so fucking bummed I didn't meet my wife until she was 25, and I missed like all of those years where she was like that. And there's wonderful stuff in the book where this person time travels back and gets to hang out with his wife when she was like a little girl. And that would be like, just, I'm gonna start crying right now, but that would be the thing, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Along with a good portion of the audience.
Yeah.
I was sitting up front to make sure no one like asked my question, so my question, if anyone has it, I apologize. Weepy.
That's so considerate, man. No one's ever said that.
Weepy.
You should write a book about that. Maybe a short book, but it'd be a good.
All right.
Yeah.
Weepy movie or movies, Big Daddy or Boyhood, which I saw set right there at the Enzian.
Hold on a second.
I know, totally different films.
Hold on a second. Boyhood. I mean, everybody's with you. Let's go to that first movie again.
Big Daddy, Adam Sandler. Everyone's seen that movie in this room, hopefully. But
I haven't seen Big Daddy, guys. What am I missing?
It's not going to happen.
But I mean, I don't know. Just like growing
Tonight's
up.
a hotel night for me. I get to pick a movie.
There you go.
Am I watching Big Daddy in my hotel tonight?
I have no idea, but it's a great film.
All right.
But I mean, your brother's not here. Big fans of you guys. The Deloriers are great. Hopefully, you're on next week's episode for Mindy, which is awesome.
I am on I just shot one on Monday.
Awesome.
And I don't know when it's airing, but we got one coming up.
All right. If a director drops a movie and you're like, I love this guy's stuff, I need to see it when it comes out, who is that person?
Yeah, maybe a director that I just trust intrinsically. Like whatever he makes, I'm gonna go see.
Right.
Joachim Trier, who made Louder Than Bombs and Reprise and Oslo August 31st, a Norwegian filmmaker. Sounds really pretentious all of a sudden. He's incredible. I think he does what I'm trying to do by capturing honest emotions, but his cinema is gorgeous. It's like if Terrence Malick was making one of my movies. He does both, and I don't know how that happens yet. And he's, I think, might be younger than me, which really pisses me off. He's amazing. I see all of Richard Linklater's movies. He's my hero. I grew up in Austin just worshiping him. So I'll see any of that stuff. Trying to think of who else I just kind of drop everything to see.
Udo Kier, you know.
Maybe. Yeah, those are the two on my brain right now. I'll try and think of some more for you.
Sir?
Okay, for weepy film, probably Tommy Wiseau's The Room. What I wanted to ask you,
There's two of them, you know, but that one's the good one. Yeah.
Actually, Baghead, I think, played here in 2009 during the festival.
Oh, okay.
And it's a film I really enjoyed quite a bit, and it was a horror comedy. I'm kind of curious if you can talk about the inspiration for that, or working with Greta Gerwig, or anything that strikes your fancy about doing that film.
Yeah, we made a movie called Baghead. It was in 2008, and I guess when it came here, it might have been 9. Yeah, so that was an interesting movie because we made the Puffy Chair in 2005. It released in 2006, and then we moved to. I actually went to LA for a few months to audition for a bunch of things. Ended up falling in love with the weather. Ended up meeting a bunch of new friends there on the east side of LA, and I was like, holy shit, this is where all the young filmmakers are. This is great. Stayed. Signed a huge screenwriting deal with Universal, made my first big chunk of money. It was really exciting, and started writing Baghead, and then signed my deal with Jay to write and direct Cyrus. So I was like, this is great. I'm going to go make a studio movie. Universal signed me. And then those movies just went slow. Because when you're making the Puffy Chair and you're paying for it yourself, like literally from the minute you come up with the script, we were shooting 10 weeks later. And the Hollywood process was excruciatingly slow to me. So we wrote Baghead, and I was like, oh, this is a movie that we can make for like $50,000. We had made a couple $100,000 on the Puffy Chair, paid our parents back, paid out all of our actors and our crew, and we had some money left over. And so we're like, well, we'll just take that and we'll go make Baghead and kind of reinvest and keep going. And our agents were like, oh, Lionsgate is going to want to make this movie. It's a horror movie. You can get like a couple $1 million to make this movie. And I was like, that sounds great. So I started looking at budgets of like what it takes to make a $2 million movie. And there are all these union fringes and all these people you have to hire that are going to sit around Crafty and smoke cigarettes and maybe not do that much. And then your salary on the movie is like maybe $10,000 to like make this movie. And I was like, why am I going to do that and have them come give me script notes? This sounds crazy. We should just go make this movie on our own and gamble, and hopefully we'll sell it. And then, again, maybe what we can do is, like we did with the Puffy Chair, share some of our profits with our cast and crew, and it'll go well. So while all those movies were slowing down, we drove down to Austin, and we opened a bank account, threw $50,000 into it, and then made the movie, and then we brought it to Sundance, and then I think we sold it for $400,000 to Sony, and so we ended up making more money on that, shared it all with the whole cast and crew. It was a movie we shot over the course of like 3 weeks, a lot of improvisation, and I learned a big lesson there, which was basically my fallback plan of, oh, I guess I'll just go make an indie movie if I can't make my studio movie. At the end of the day, I got full creative control, and I made more money making that movie than I even made like if I had done it with a studio. So I had a big comeuppance making that movie, and I did enjoy making Cyrus. I got out to a lot wider people, and I did enjoy making Jeff Lives at Home. But at the end of the day, Jay and I were kind of like, if we're gonna direct a movie again, I think we'd kind of rather just go scrap it with our friends, and you know, it's again, creatively it's a win, but it ended up being financially a win too. So it's kind of the way we like it.
I have a question for you. In regards to your comment.
Wait, what's your weepy movie? Come on.
Old Yeller.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's every time. Or Rascal or The Yearling. It's all animals. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're all animals all the time.
I know,
it.
it's scary.
I have a TV show on HBO called Animals, but whatever, it's fine.
I love it. I've seen them all.
Yeah.
So my question is, with the big debate going on in Hollywood right now about Screening Room, the new like Roku that
Yep.
allows you to so Screening Room, which lets you watch movies first run the day they come out, and Flex, which is a new app that comes out for Apple TV and Roku that is going to be streaming movies that weren't picked up at film festivals for $2 a piece in
Do
May.
you own Flex?
Yep. So there you go. So my question is what do you think about all this with the movies pulling the people out of the theater into the home?
So, larger question that's less crazy insider for everyone is like, how do we feel about, as filmmakers, about our movies being watched more and more at home as opposed to in the theaters? It's an easy answer for me. The truth is, my movies are about faces and feelings, okay? I don't take a huge loss when my movie isn't watched in the movie theater. My movies watch terrifically at home on a 42-inch television streaming on Netflix, so I have no problem with this whole process. I feel for the extremely visually oriented cinematic filmmaker, the young Terrence Malick, even Colin Trevorrow, who I made Safety Not Guaranteed with. Like, he likes big Spielberg-y movies. He wants them on the big screen. I totally get it. I sympathize. I am an independent filmmaker. I can't afford to be fussy about how my movies get seen. The most important thing to me is getting eyeballs on my movies, which is, why I have partnered with Netflix on a lot of things. Like, I can put an original movie on Netflix, and they turn this little dial in there, and it gets recommended on all of your TVs. And after a month, like 4 million people have watched the movie. And I'm like, that's the equivalent of making like $30 million at the box office. Even though I don't see all that money, I'm getting all these eyeballs, and I'm getting a paycheck that lets me live. Like, maybe it's a little bit defeatist of me, but that's all. It's more than I ever could have asked for. So I don't fuss.
There you go, sir.
My weepy movie would be It's a Wonderful Life. Kills me every year.
That's a hell of a weeper. Steve Zissis, who stars with me on Togetherness and created it with me, that's his favorite movie of all time, which is why we wrote it into the show.
That is fantastic. To borrow a question from your own film, how did you know that Katie was the one?
You're asking me about my marriage?
Yes, sir.
Really? Oh, that's a weird question. I will answer it in regards to the movie, which I thought was funny, which is that that story that my dad tells is a variation on a real story from his life. And I remember coming to him when I was in college with my college girlfriend, asking him a similar question. And I remembered when he told me that story, it knocked me on my ass because I knew immediately that the girl I was with was not right for me. And it hurt really, really bad when he told me. And I think he knew she wasn't right for me, and that was his way of doing it. So I learned there. In terms of me and my wife, I'll probably keep that within the confines of my home. So
Fair enough, though.
Yes.
Hey there. I guess I would say my weepy movie is The Notebook. Mainly the old people part, which is a little cheesy, but I have like dementia in my family and stuff like
Hey.
that, so it's sort of.
I want to give it up to you for having the bravery to admit that The Notebook works on you. I wept copiously in that movie. I wasn't brave enough to say it in this theater until you said it. I appreciate you blazing that trail for me.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Not to mention, Ryan Gosling looks pretty good.
Ryan Gosling.
We can all admit that.
Ryan Gosling with a beard kind of looks like you. I'm going to be honest with you. So now I get what she's coming from. You wanted to make out with yourself in that movie.
You're spot on with that. Okay. So I have another question. It's family. I hope you don't mind. I got married last year. Super.
Congratulations.
Fortunate. Yeah, thank you very much. And we.
Rachel McAdams?
Huh?
You married Rachel McAdams?
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
I
good.
did. It was incredible. In the rain and the boat.
Yeah.
And she's also a filmmaker. We both are able to make films together. Sometimes she directs, sometimes I direct. We're able to shoot, produce, just do all this stuff. It's great. We've also found there's some really incredibly strong creative walls you can hit with someone you're also intimate with.
Yes.
But we don't have kids yet, which is great. And we kind of don't want to do it for maybe 10 years or something. And so the main question I asked is, you said 8 years old? 4 and 8?
Yeah, I got 2 kids, 4 and 8, yeah.
How do you balance that? How do you make the time? Because the thing, like I had just parents who were there for me all the time. They just work jobs
Yeah,
just to make it work?
I think
and,
it's a good
you know?
good question for filmmakers in the audience to think about, like on a broader sense. Like, can you have it all? Can you do the family thing? Can you be irrationally dedicated to your art? You're pursuing an art form that requires crazy amounts of work and maybe all of yourself and then some. So how can you justify the kids in the middle of that? All that. Totally get that question. I am the last person on earth to say what is quote unquote right. What I can talk about is what has worked for us, which is basically something I believe, which is like you create the normal for your family. Okay. I grew up in a traditional household where my mother was there to raise us and my father went and won the bacon and everybody was fine. That was just what we did in New Orleans in the 70s. What happens in California in 2016 is that my house is like a fucking commune where I have artists living with us at all times, visiting from New York, people who don't have enough money to pay their rent, so they come live in a guest room with us for 6 months so that they can write their script and not have to pay rent. And my kids are raised by a community of loving, strange artists. And what has been the positive of that, in my opinion, is that like they're extremely self-confident and comfortable around all kinds of people. And then every now and then, one of us has to say, you got to stay home because I need to take this job right now for my spirit. And that sucks. And that's hard, you know, when you have two working parents. But at the end of the day, you know, what my wife and I always talk about is just like, we would rather sleep next to someone on the pillow who can like understand specifically what the problems of our industry are. You know, like it would be really hard for me to sleep next to like an ER doctor and be like, I'm worried about my vision getting across in my movie. And she's like, I lost 4 patients today. So all of your problems are not valid in this bed whatsoever. You know, the good news for you is that you can turn and burn for, you know, quite a few years. So I would recommend that. But I would also say, I mean, this is totally overstepping my bounds here. But
No,
in my
for it.
personal opinion, like I specifically remember carrying around my daughter in a baby Bjorn while my wife was directing her first movie, and that didn't damage the way that my child was raised. She understands us. She's a part of our life. If anything, it made her a more flexible kid because she's just like used to just like moving around. Hey, here we go. So I'm a fan of just like throwing everybody in the pot. Just say fuck it and go for it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Cool.
I'm the Joy Luck Club guy. Unfortunately, I'm not 6'2".
Yeah.
Predator. I really thought that question was great about what you would do now if you got started, and I wanted to push that a little further. You mentioned Tangerine, which I know you helped finance, is a noisy movie. If you were financing films, and I assume maybe you have others in the pipeline that are not your own, where you don't have the creative fulfillment of making your own movie.
I have a ton.
What do you look for in those films? Do you finance like honest small films, or do you look for some return on your investment by knowing you can get pressed this way or that? So how do you choose?
Yeah, it's a combination of things, you know. Sometimes they are close friends of mine that I just believe in, and I know that if I give them X amount of dollars, in the worst case scenario, I'll at least get my X back. That's usually how I try to invest is in the worst case scenario, because of the elements involved in the film, whether it's a thriller, so can thrillers sell, or whether it has this actress in it who guarantees a certain amount of money, or whether I only put 20 in, and if I slap my name on it, I can always sell a movie for $20,000. I try not to put any more money in a movie than I know in the worst case scenario I won't make it back, so that everything from there is upside. And I finance a ton of movies out of pocket, and what I like to do is basically find people that are extremely passionate, and people who are not fussy about doing absolutely everything, and working for any director who works for me 100% works for zero money up front. They always have to gamble with me because I'm not making a salary. I never have and I never will take producer salaries on things. I only ride on the back end. I don't want to encumber anybody's movie getting made by saying, well, I have to make $50,000 up front. Fuck you, man. Don't do that. Help somebody make a movie. That drives me crazy. So I make everybody work for free and upside, but I'm extremely generous as a financier, which people need to do more of. Normally when someone's coming in on a movie, even if they're only paying like $300,000 for a movie, they'll say, I want to make my $300,000 back plus 20%, plus a bunch of phantom expenses I'm going to put in there, like really weird meals that I charge with me and my wife, and I want 50% of the back end. Like, what I try to do is just be like, hey, you're not going to make this movie for a lot of money, but you're going to live and die by your work. So I'm going to give you $100 grand. Go make your movie. I need to make my $100 grand back first. And then after that, I'll take like 20%. You can share the rest of it with your cast and crew because you guys all worked for it. And those are the kinds of movies I really like to finance, just like little lottery tickets that I give to people, and hopefully they knock it out of the park. And if they don't, nobody lost too much money and we'll live to fight another day.
So do you look at the merit of the saleability in terms of the budget that you
It's not the sole factor, and saleability is not what you would imagine. Tangerine has the least saleability of any movie you can possibly imagine. A movie starring 2 no-name transgendered actresses shot on iPhone, non-union, which could get shut down in the first day and lose all of my money. It is like the least saleable movie. But I believe in Sean Baker and I believe in that filmmaker, you know. So I consider some of that a little bit, you know, and I consider other things like, for instance, like if there's a certain actor or an actress who has been in a TV show that's been very successful overseas, and like they really want to be in their first drama, and I don't know if they're going to be that good or not, but I believe in them and I want to take a chance on them, I'll be like, even if this movie kind of stinks, I feel like we can sell it in France and Germany for like 50 grand a piece. So that's 50 there, that's 50 there. So you get $100,000. Here it is. If you stink it up, we'll sell it in France and Germany and DVD, we'll make the money back, or you might hit it out of the park. But if you do, it's probably because of you and not because of me, so I want you to have 80% of the upside.
How much of New Orleans do you carry around with you? How much?
Spiritually speaking, a lot of New Orleans is carried around with me just because it's a ragtag DIY kind of city, you know. It's an underdog kind of town where it's just like, fuck it, we're just gonna do things our way. I don't know what the right way is, and so that spirit is definitely in me, you know. But I connect to a lot of cities in that way. I connect to Detroit in that way. I connect to New Orleans in that way. You know, my parents live in Los Angeles now, so we don't get back there as much as I would like to.
So do you consider yourself a yat?
When I drink enough, like if I have 2 more of these, I'll be yatting it up. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. 2 more beers, please.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, we only have time for these 3 more questions.
3 questions. They better be good.
All right, we'll start over here.
It's good because some people are falling asleep. I'm really talking a lot up here.
No pressure. Oh, you? Okay, go ahead. You're good.
Hi, guys.
Weeper.
My Weeper, Kenneth Lonergan's You Can Count on Me.
Oh, great movie.
And his new one I saw at Sundance, Manchester by the Sea.
People are digging it.
I'm still crying.
Okay.
My question is simple. Do you still play music? It's such an important part of your life. Are you in a band? Do you perform?
That's so sweet of you to ask. I don't play out in bands and do all that stuff.
Bummer.
My daughters both play music, and we play a lot of music in the house. I'm writing a movie right now that's about musicians. That's something that I could perform in with someone else. That'll be fun to do. Sort of a weird anti-musical. So there's no professional music aspect of my life. It's all fun stuff. And that's kind of where I like it right now.
That's
But thank you
awesome.
for asking. It's very sweet.
I don't have a cool hit movie, but The Lion King, it's my weepy one. Sorry, man.
Can you feel the love? Yeah, that's good.
I haven't cried in a while, to be honest, so I had to go back.
You okay, man?
In movies, I
You wanna,
cried.
like,
I got married recently. I cried there. I think I cried during my wedding video, so that's some sort of film.
Do you want to come sit on Mark's lap up here and just kind of figure some stuff out?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Want to hug it out?
My question's more geared towards your acting. So in comedy and in drama, who have been 2 actors that have impacted you and why?
I never think about things that are so sort of bifurcated like that. But let me think about it. Comedy and drama, who are 2 actors that have impacted me? Okay. The one actor that comes to mind is John Cazale. Because, and I think a lot of you know him, but he played Fredo in the Godfather movies. He died very young. He was Meryl Streep's boyfriend. He's in Deer Hunter. And what I love about John Cazale, and it's something I aspire to, if you watch the documentary on him, everybody says the same thing. to a person is that John Cazale made you the best actor you could possibly be. When he was in a scene, he didn't necessarily raise himself up, but he always raised you up. My best scenes were with John Cazale. And I thought about that, and it really, really struck me from a very early age. And so if I'm aspiring to something as an actor, I feel like, and I, you know, it's not like a sob thing. I'm not the kind of actor that I feel like is going to go out and win Academy Awards, but I do feel like I'm the kind of actor that can elevate movies and like maybe get some of the better performances out of, or different kinds of performances we haven't seen out of people before. Like I had never seen Aubrey Plaza do that romantic thing that she did with us in Safety Not Guaranteed. And when Elizabeth Moss, when I started to get to know her personally, I was like, there's a really sweet rom-com girl in here. We've only seen the period girl in Mad Men. And so we got to like bring that out in The One I Love. And I just did a movie with Sarah Paulson where we've never seen her kind of do this thing before. So if I have a goal, it's like to be that kind of guy who's like able to generate a certain kind of chemistry. So yeah, that's a goal.
Awesome. Thank you.
You should watch the director's cut, the director's commentary in Dog Day Afternoon, Sidney Lumet's commentary.
Oh, yes.
It's really, it's all about just watching his actors do their thing, and John and Al's work in that was, he talks about that a lot.
He's awesome.
My weepy movie, is High Fidelity.
Yeah, that's a
Kills
good
me every
weeper,
time.
baby.
What was that? My question, you kind of answered it during Carol's, but.
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. Sorry.
No, but with like doing a music film, you say you're doing one, but is there maybe a musician story that you wish you could tell, if you ever got the chance to?
I mean, to be honest with you, there's not like an actual historical musician story I want to tell, but my experience as a musician was a confusing one in that I had a record deal. We were out there on general making like $230 a night to split between 3 guys with little bits of money trickling in, and if we lived with 5 roommates, we could kind of get by. So there was a temptation to keep going. It wasn't the clear like, hey man, it's not happening, nobody picked us up, so we gotta quit. And it wasn't the clear like, we're on the fucking radio right now and we're winning. We were right in the middle, and it was so confusing. It was like being in a semi-abusive relationship with someone who's also good for you. And we would like show up to a town and like nobody was there, and we'd make $83 and blow it all in a hotel where I tried to sneak people in, which was real. That definitely is something I used to do. And then you'd be like having that long drive in the van. You'd be like, guys, what are we doing? Like, we're getting too old for this. Like, I had this horrible moment on tour where I was 26. My drummer was 26. My guitar player was 29. We were sleeping on the dorm room floor of like some sophomore in a university in Michigan, this kid, and it just smelled like cat piss. And I was reading the biography of Che Guevara, and I got to the moment when they got on a raft in Mexico and headed to Cuba to start an international revolution. And Che was 26, Raul Castro was 26, and Fidel was 29. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? This is not important what I'm doing here. But then you would show up at a club later that night where the local DJ at University of Chicago picked up your CD and he spun you for a week straight, and you sold out to 400 people, and you make $2,000 and you sell 30 records, and you have a night all night where you write songs and get stoned all night with the opening band, and you're like, this is it. We're here. And then the next day you play to 19 people again. So if I was going to tell a musician's story, I think it would be about the truth of that, like kind of that purgatory, which is so confusing. And I think, for some of you in the room as filmmakers, you can probably identify with some of this. I bet there are a few of you who are like, yeah, dude, I can like go and shoot a commercial, like a corporate gig, and get by, and my short film got into a festival, so I'm kind of scraping by, and should I quit? Should I stay in it? I don't know, and I don't really, have answers to that, but I do know that like most of the times when you read stories, and even up here, I've been hyperbolic tonight about like what it's been like for me to get to the place I'm at, which is a really good place. I make enough money to own a home, send my kids to school, and I'm going to be okay. But in general, know that like I started doing this when I was 16, and I didn't make a paycheck until I was 29. So it takes a long time, and if you love it and you love it that hard, you know, and you stick in it and you really listen to your friends and listen to your coworkers, I do believe there's something there. But you know, it's a long haul for sure.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you guys for coming. And thank you to the Florida Film Festival for having me here. And thank you to Mark the Rabbi Rabinowitz.